Spent the whole weekend at home gaming. And guess what? Lost every single match. I put my phone down, took a deep breath. It's just 10 losses in a row. No big deal. Not mad. Not mad at all. I stared at my screen. Alright Jack, last chance. Just let me win one game. And I'll go to bed. Jumped into another match. And boom, 11 losses in a row. I felt my blood pressure skyrocket. Rage surged straight up to my skull. Every cell in my body was screaming for me to lose it. But I held it in. Because if I woke my parents up, they'd double-team me with a full-on life lecture. But if I didn't let it out somewhere, I was gonna explode. So I quietly slipped out of my room, headed straight for the rooftop. The second I pushed open the rooftop door, a cool breeze hit my face. Didn't even think, just closed my eyes and screamed my lungs out. Yelled out all my frustration, letting my anger dissolve into the night air. Rubbed my chest. Ah, much better. Wait, something felt off. Why does it smell like barbecue up here? Snapped my eyes open, and there they were. Like 10 people. All staring at me. The whole rooftop was filled with the rich, mouth-watering smell of grilled meat. But in that moment, all I could taste was my own embarrassment. I stood frozen, eyes wide. Didn't even remember to turn and run. I locked eyes with the whole group. Dead silence. Brain short-circuited. So, naturally, I did the only thing I could think of, awkwardly grinned and blurted out. Wow, lots of people up here. The air froze. I wanted to cry. Like, seriously, who the hell throws a rooftop party in the middle of the night? More importantly, would I still have time to make a run for it? Just as I was calculating my escape route, trying to figure out a way to leave with at least a shred of dignity, a guy with messy red hair looking all cocky and up to no good suddenly perked up. He turned to the man beside him, a guy in a black dress shirt, radiating sea-level vibes, and wiggled his eyebrows. Well, Ethan, looks like your girlfriend came looking for you. Instantly, everyone's gaze shifted to me. And suddenly the entire atmosphere changed. Their eyes held a weird, unspoken agreement. What the hell? One of the short-haired girls cleared her throat and let out an exaggerated laugh. Looks like our boss won't be able to avoid this relationship any longer. Huh? What the hell are they talking about? I'm just a random passerby. Maybe I should leave. I cautiously took a step back, testing the waters. Too bad red hair wasn't having it. Oh, come on, sweetheart, since you're already here, might as well grab a bite. Logic screamed, stay composed, be rational, decline the offer. But the smell of grilled meat? Too powerful. I swallowed hard. Short-haired girl definitely noticed my hesitation because she immediately grabbed my hand and smiled. Perfect timing, more people, more fun. What's your name, sweetheart? I gave an awkward smile. Vivian. And I'm not a kid, I'm already 21. She repeated my name, then grinned. Oh, still just 21? Compared to us, that makes you the baby of the group. Before I could protest, she dragged me into the introductions. I met Scarlett, that's her name. Red hair, Blaze. Fitting, considering both his hair and personality screamed chaos. After a whirlwind of names, Scarlett finally led me to the one person they were teasing earlier. I stole a glance. And well, if I thought the grilled meat looked appetizing, this man looked even more delicious. Dressed in a black dress shirt and tailored slacks, he exuded cold sophistication. His features were sharp, striking, flawlessly sculpted. And his lips, thin and pale, looking way too kissable for my sanity. Scarlett's voice snapped me back to reality. Now, let me formally introduce you, our boss, the man who's got both the looks and the brains, Ethan Stone. Before Ethan could say a word, Blaze shoved me down onto the seat beside him. Then, with a slap on Ethan's shoulder, he smirked and declared, "All right, big shot lawyer, don't go back on your own words now. We're all witnesses, so don't disappoint us. Good luck." The glare Ethan shot him could have frozen hell over. But Blaze. He shrugged like he couldn't care less, grabbed Scarlett's hand and casually walked away. I was completely lost. But at least I managed to pick up one useful piece of information: the man sitting next to me is a lawyer. And not just any lawyer, a damn good one, judging by the way Scarlett called him boss. Instantly, my mind wiped itself clean of all inappropriate thoughts. Because let's be real, if I so much as tried anything reckless with Ethan Stone, he'd probably sue me into bankruptcy. A wave of unease crept over me. Meanwhile, Ethan Stone? Unbothered. He didn't even acknowledge my awkward presence, continuing his movements with effortless grace. His sleeves were rolled up high, revealing lean but well-defined forearms. His hands, long fingers, elegant yet strong, worked seamlessly as he turned the skewers on the grill. It was a simple motion, nothing flashy. But somehow it was mesmerizing to watch. Before I even realized it, I was staring. Vivian. Hearing my name, I jolted like I'd been electrocuted. Ethan handed me a freshly grilled skewer, his deep voice carrying a hint of amusement. Nice name. Caught off guard by the sudden compliment, my face instantly flushed red. Ethan turned to me, his voice calm but curious. "Why'd you come up here at this hour?" "Bad mood." "That's a good question. But I can't exactly tell him. I got so pissed off at a game that I ran up here to scream into the void. So I just nodded along." Ethan's expression turned serious, his deep gaze locked onto me. "There are plenty of ways to relieve stress. Play some games, go for a walk. But don't do anything extreme." "Wait, Hold on. Does he think I came up here too? Bro, you're telling me to play games to feel better? Games are the reason I'm in this emotional crisis to begin with. But sure, I'll take the advice. Next time I'll just skip the suggestion part. I obediently nodded, promising not to do anything drastic, then focused on eating my food. After all, I shamelessly scored this barbecue, I better enjoy it. And damn, it was delicious. Somehow we naturally fell into a rhythm. Ethan grilled, I ate. By the time I let out a satisfied burp, he finally put down the tongs. They say a full stomach fuels wild thoughts. And right now I was no exception. Damn it. Ethan's face is just unfair. I stared at him for a moment, then suddenly remembered what Blaze and Scarlett had said earlier. Might as well ask. So, why did they say your girlfriend came looking for you? Ethan froze mid-motion. For the first time, Mr. Unshakable Cool actually looked awkward. Clearing his throat, he explained, we were playing a game earlier. I lost. My punishment was to confess to someone I like. But I don't like anyone. So I joked that if a girl suddenly walked in at that moment, I'd confess to her. And then you showed up. His voice was steady, his lips moving far too distractingly as he spoke. But don't take it seriously, he added, trying to brush it off. I cut him off before he could finish. So, are you going to confess to me? The entire rooftop went dead silent. Ethan, caught completely off guard, parted his lips slightly, speechless. Everyone else. Oh, they were loving this. The second the words left my mouth, the crowd exploded. Confess. Confess. Great. Now we're in a full-blown confession rally. And Ethan, officially trapped. As the initial haze of impulsive courage faded, I started to realize what I had just said. My face burned up. Crap. Maybe I should laugh it off, say I was just joking? But then, I accidentally caught a glimpse of Ethan's ears. Flushed completely red. And just like that, any thought of backing down vanished. Screw reason. Without a second thought, I closed the distance between us. I saw it happen in real time. Ethan's pupils dilated, his entire body stiffening. The crowd. Dead silent. No more chanting, just the sharp sound of people sucking in their breath. Our skin was millimeters apart. I leaned in, brushing against his ear, voice barely above a whisper. Ethan, your ears are so red. Since you won't confess to me, why don't I confess to you instead? And with that, I threw every last bit of hesitation out the window. I grabbed his collar and kissed him, right on the lips. The same lips I'd been secretly eyeing all night. In the split second that followed, I bolted. The crowd, who had just witnessed the entire thing, stood there frozen, eyes wide, mouths hanging open. Their heads turned in sync as they followed my escape route. And to my absolute shock, they even stepped aside, parting like the Red Sea, clearing a path for me. I swear this was the fastest I had ever run in my life. I was practically flying. So fast, in fact, that one of my slippers went flying straight off my foot. But I couldn't afford to think about that now. I was too busy running for my life. What if Ethan snapped and decided to end me? He's a lawyer, even if he killed me, he could probably argue his way out of it. That night, I had the wildest dream. In it, Ethan was chasing me with a 10-meter-long sword. I was panting, sprinting for my life. But Ethan had long legs and I was losing ground fast. In the end, he caught me, pressed the blade against my neck and growled, "Vivian, prepare to die." I shivered. Dude, chill. I just kissed you. Did that really warrant a full-on assassination attempt? Ethan's jaw clenched, his teeth grinding audibly. Alright, fine. If he was going to kill me anyway, then I might as well make it worth it. With a quick shift of my eyes, I made a bold decision and kissed him again. Cut to the next scene. I was in handcuffs, shoved into a courtroom. Ethan stood at the judge's bench, looking smug as hell. I was ready to defend myself, already crafting my speech in my head. And then, a loud alarm blasted into my ears. I jerked awake, bolting upright in bed. Clutching my racing heart, I gasped for air. When I woke up, I found my mom sitting at my bedside. Big eyes staring into little eyes. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Nothing, go back to sleep." "Then why are you in my room?" "Listening to music." "For artistic enlightenment." I blinked. "Is there a chance that your artistic enlightenment is stopping me from sleeping?" At that moment, my mom's sharp gaze shot at me like a laser beam. And then, in a voice loud enough to shake the dust off the floor, "If you can't sleep, then get up. Do you not see the sun is already 3 poles high?" I flinched. Then I rolled out of bed, scrambled to my feet and bolted into the bathroom. Yes, a mother's love on a timer. I had only been home for 2 days. And I was already no longer the apple of her eye. Tragic. Crying inside, I packed up my things and escaped back to campus that very afternoon. Before leaving, I turned to my dad with my last hope. "Dad, can you make my favorite braised fish next weekend?" He waved me off without hesitation. "No, can do. Your mom and I are going back to our hometown next week." "I don't have to go." He pulled out his phone. "Nope. Check the itinerary. You're not on it." Then without even looking up, he added, "I'll send you some money. Buy yourself something good at school." A moment later, second in household ranking, has transferred you $2,000. I let out a deep sigh and nodded. "Got it. Your daughter will now vanish into thin air." For the next 4 days straight we had early morning classes. Every morning the entire class was grumbling and cursing, but no one dared to skip. Because our department was notorious for its strict attendance policy. If you dared to skip a class, the guidance counselor would personally invite you to their office for a coffee chat. Last time my roommate had one of those chats. She was sick for 2 whole days afterward. Since then, not a single soul in our dorm dared to even think about skipping class again. Finally, we survived Thursday, and then came our beloved Friday. An entire afternoon with no classes. I had already mapped out the perfect schedule. Binge watch my shows. Take a glorious nap. Flawless. Then Zoe came barging in, grabbing my arm. Come to a lecture with me. I stared at her like she had lost her mind. I reached out and felt her forehead. You okay? Since when do you voluntarily attend lectures? Zoe wiggled her eyebrows, practically vibrating with excitement. The lecturer is hot. I squinted at her, deeply skeptical. You sure? Zoe pounded her chest with confidence. If he's not hot, I'll give you my head. Let's not go that far. I started grabbing my stuff while casually asking, which department? Zoe beamed. Law school. My eye twitched. No way. It couldn't be. Seriously couldn't be. You already know where this is going. Because of course, the guest lecturer was none other than Ethan. I suddenly felt a little guilty. So I dragged Zoe to a corner seat. Zoe frowned. Why are we sitting here? Let's go to the front. You gotta sit close to properly appreciate a hot guy. And just like that, I was forcibly hauled to the 3rd row, dead center. I pressed a hand to my forehead. I wanna die. But then again, Ethan probably wouldn't remember me, right? I clung to that sliver of hope. Still, I couldn't help but steal glances at him from time to time. Today Ethan was dressed to kill. His tailored suit made him look even more mature and composed. Compared to that night, there was one new addition. A pair of gold-rimmed glasses perched on his nose bridge, making him look stern, sophisticated, and ridiculously attractive. Then his calm, velvety voice filled the lecture hall. The moment he spoke, the whispers around us grew louder. Most of them were variations of, "Oh my God. He's so hot." Except for one guy who proudly declared, "This man is my idol. He's brilliant. I swear I'm gonna become a legend like him one day." I silently gave him a thumbs up. Respect, kid. You've got ambition. As Ethan continued his insightful yet effortlessly witty lecture. Time flew by. The whole time he never once looked in my direction. I let out a small sigh of relief. Finally, I could openly admire his face without any worries. Then came the Q&A session. Ethan's #1 fanboy was the first to shoot up. He asked 2 very serious technical questions. I didn't understand a word. So I just focused on Ethan's lips instead. More students took turns asking questions. I got bored and yawned. Then a guy from the second to last row suddenly stood up. "Attorney Stone, can I take a picture with you after this? My grandma is a huge fan." Ethan raised a brow. "If you want a photo, just ask for one. No need for the extra excuse." Laughter erupted in the room. Ethan, however, remained completely unfazed. He simply nodded in agreement. And that one nod was all it took. Because after that, the questions started going off the rails. "Attorney Stone, can I work at your law firm as a janitor? I'm super hardworking." "Attorney Stone, can I get your autograph? I want to give it to my grandpa for his 70th birthday." "Attorney Stone, can I shake your hand? My luck has been terrible lately. I need some of yours." "Attorney Stone, today's my birthday. Can I get a hug?" I gotta admit, these university students were absolutely unhinged. But just when I thought it couldn't get any crazier, I was proven so wrong. The questions kept rolling in one after another. Then from the back row, a tall, burly guy suddenly shouted at the top of his lungs, "Attorney Stone, can I kiss you?" Wait, what? For a solid few seconds. Silence. Absolute dead silence. Then every single person in the room turned their heads in unison to stare at the brave or possibly insane dude who had just asked to kiss Ethan. Even he looked stunned. Clearly he had just blindly jumped on the bandwagon, without thinking it through, never expecting to become the center of attention. And just like that, the entire hall exploded. From pin-drop silence to absolute chaos in 3 seconds flat. Everyone leaned forward with eager eyes, dying to hear how Ethan would respond. Ethan's expression flickered for a split second. Then his slender fingers pushed up his glasses, and just like that he was back to his usual composed self. His gaze swept over the crowd, moving slowly from the back row forward, until finally, it landed directly on me. My heart dropped. Oh crap. He saw me. Ethan's expression remained calm, relaxed, like he was having the time of his life. His thin lips curved ever so slightly as he spoke. "Vivian." The moment I heard my name, my brain shut down. Without thinking, I immediately executed the holy trinity of university students. Raised my hand, shot up from my seat and shouted, "Yes?" In one swift, humiliating motion, I successfully redirected every single pair of eyes in the hall onto me. Ethan's gaze held amusement as he said, "Why don't you answer the question for me?" I froze. What question? My mind went blank for 3 whole seconds, then I pinched my thigh. Right. The guy asked if Ethan could kiss him. Suddenly, a loud buzzing noise filled my brain. This bastard. He did this on purpose. Ethan, still waiting, asked again. So, yes or no? Dear God. If I say yes, will Ethan actually kiss that guy? I mentally played out the scenario. The image was so horrifying I almost screamed. Before I even knew what I was doing, my head snapped from side to side like a broken doll. No, absolutely not. Never. Ethan let out a low chuckle. Then he turned toward the poor guy whose face was now redder than a tomato and said, "This student Vivian has spoken. The answer is no." The dude scratched his head awkwardly and laughed nervously. I was just joking. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Good to know. Then he faced the rest of the room, still perfectly composed. Alright everyone, that concludes today's session. Enjoy your weekend. He paused for a moment, then he looked directly at me. Oh, and Vivian, stay behind. Excuse me? Zoe, who had been watching the entire thing unfold, tugged at my sleeve and whispered anxiously, "What the hell is going on?" Meanwhile, I was already mourning my own fate. With a blank, dead-eyed expression, I muttered, "Zoe, if I don't make it back in 30 minutes, start planning my funeral." Zoe. I followed behind Ethan all the way to the parking lot, feeling like a prisoner on death row. When he finally stopped walking, I swallowed nervously and forced out a dry laugh. Attorney Stone, what a coincidence. Never thought I'd run into you at my school. Ethan opened his car door, bent down, and pulled out a paper bag from the passenger seat. Then he held it out to me. Confused, I took the bag and peeked inside. The moment I saw what was inside, I froze. In fairy tales, the prince finds the glass slipper and reunites with Cinderella. For love. Ethan found my missing flip-flop and tracked me down. Not for love. No, judging by his expression. I had a feeling that our future together was far more likely to resemble a courtroom battle between a plaintiff and a defendant. I wiped the sweat off my forehead. Mr. Stone, how about you hear me out first? I gulped. That night, my brain short-circuited. I swear I wasn't trying to take advantage of you. Ethan leaned against his car, arms crossed, and tilted his head slightly. But I think you were. I froze for a second. Then, out of nowhere, a classic internet quote popped into my mind. I cleared my throat and said, "I don't need you to think, I need me to think." Ethan lifted his gaze lazily, looking at me with zero amusement. Suddenly, I chickened out. Haha, just kidding. Just kidding. I waved my hands in surrender. I apologize. A full, heartfelt apology. That night, I was just blinded by beauty and lost control. Then I squinted at him and muttered, "But you're partly responsible too." Ethan raised an eyebrow. I clasped my hands together and pleaded dramatically, "Who told you to look so dangerously good? A mere college student like me is bound to make mistakes, okay?" I even let out a tragic wail. "Mr. Stone, I'm begging you. Please don't sue me." Before I could finish crying for mercy, a light flick landed on my forehead. I blinked. Ethan was staring at me, clearly amused. "And when exactly did I say I was suing you?" I lifted my head slowly, eyes wide with cautious disbelief. After making sure that he really had no intention of dragging me to court, I let out a long sigh of relief. "That's funny. Because in my dream you totally had me on trial." Ethan's gaze gleamed with curiosity. "Oh." He smirked. "And what else did you dream about me?" My face heated up immediately. Well," I coughed. "Some things are better left unsaid." Ethan's eyebrows lifted slightly, his expression filled with undeniable amusement. He patted the car door and said, "Get in." I asked, "Where are we going?" Ethan opened the car door and said casually, "You're treating me to dinner." I blinked. Wait, did I hear that right? Ethan Stone just said I'm the one treating him to dinner? Internally I was screaming, "Hold on. I'm a college student. I'm broke." But in the end I still got into the car. Because, well, it's Ethan. Besides, I wasn't exactly completely broke. I still had the $2,000 my dad sent me. I clenched my phone tightly. One meal shouldn't cost $2,000, right? But the moment we arrived at the place I went completely numb. Ethan had picked the most famous fine dining restaurant in N City. Not famous for its taste, mind you. Famous for its price. As in, stupidly expensive. My brain immediately jumped to the worst-case scenario. If I can't afford this meal, will they make me wash dishes? My forehead throbbed with anxiety. I stole a glance at Ethan, hoping for a miracle. But this heartless man didn't even look at me, just walked straight in. I squinted. He's doing this on purpose, isn't he? I took a deep breath. Fine. It's just washing a few dishes, right? How bad could it be? With a soul-sacrificing expression, I followed him inside. After sitting down, I stared at the menu. At the absolutely ridiculous prices. My hands shook. Is this even food for normal humans? I sneaked a peek at Ethan. He was calmly reading the menu, serene like a masterpiece painting. And at that moment, I suddenly got it. What's the big deal about spending money on a man? If Ethan is willing to eat, then fine. I'll wash the dishes. No big deal. Halfway through, I suddenly remembered something. I glanced at him and asked, "Did you come looking for me on purpose?" Then I purposely emphasized on purpose, just to see his reaction. But the man didn't even flinch. He just casually replied, "Yes and no." "Sir, are you reciting a riddle?" He explained, "Our firm just got a new intern. He's from your university. Apparently you're quite famous. The moment he heard your name, he knew exactly who you were. And since I happen to have a lecture at your school, I figured I'd bring you your shoe." As Ethan spoke, he lifted his eyes to look at me. And at that moment all I could think about was, when I get home I'm putting that slipper on an altar. This is no ordinary slipper. This is a matchmaker's certified slipper. I snapped out of my thoughts and tried to act a little embarrassed. I wouldn't say I'm famous, just kind of well known. I only attended a few school events, maybe someone just happened to remember me. But then something still didn't add up. Why would someone at his law firm even mention my name? I frowned in confusion. Hearing my question, Ethan's expression froze for a second. Then he let out a soft chuckle. "All thanks to you, Vivian. After you ran off from the rooftop that night, I had the honor of becoming my entire firm's new favorite joke. They tell everyone that I was forcibly kissed by a girl named Vivian. Why does that sound like I'm some shameless delinquent corrupting an innocent young man?" I let out an awkward laugh, then buried my head in shame. Damn my nosy mouth. I should have never asked. I could feel Ethan's gaze lingering over me as if he was enjoying my embarrassment. For the rest of dinner, I didn't dare lift my head. I kept mentally preparing myself for the moment of reckoning. The moment the bill would come. The moment I wouldn't have enough money. The moment they'd throw me into the kitchen to wash dishes for my meal. But that never happened. Turns out, Ethan had paid the bill while I wasn't looking. The whole "you're treating me to dinner" thing? Yeah, total scam. I had every reason to believe this was just his twisted way of messing with me. I swear he let me panic for fun. After dinner, Ethan drove me back to campus. Before getting out of the car, I hesitated for a long time. There was one question that had been haunting me all night. "So, if I had said yes back then, would you have actually kissed that guy?" Ethan froze. His usually calm and unreadable expression suddenly became a little complicated. "No need to answer. I already got it. Goodbye." I blurted out, panically flung open the car door and ran for my life. Just in case he actually did chase me down with a knife like in my dream. By the time I reached the dorm and opened the door, I was out of breath. Then I saw Zoe standing there, holding a giant woven sack, the kind people use for packing deliveries. She looked at me shocked. "Vivian, you ran back on your own. I was just about to go collect your body." I have no words. I chugged 3 glasses of water before I finally managed to explain everything that had happened today. Zoe squinted at me. "I knew it. That's why Attorney Stone knew your name and made you answer for him. Turns out you two already kissed. So, he chased you all the way to school. Does this mean he likes you?" I feel like I didn't explain things properly. But whatever. Does Ethan like me? No clue. But do I want him to like me? Oh, absolutely. And soon I found a perfect opportunity to stay in touch with him. That night at dinner, I added Ethan on WeChat. Then I made it my mission to text him every day. Ethan, being Ethan, was always busy. Most of my messages didn't get an instant reply. But every now and then, during lunch or late at night, he'd send me a short and concise response. Eventually, I found out that he was buried under a huge case. Tough one. But of course they still won it. Sometimes I'd daydream about Ethan standing in court. Composed. Using the law as his weapon. Quick-witted and sharp-tongued as he defended his client. Damn. That's hot. One day, I finally managed to get Scarlett's WhatsApp through a friend. I texted her right away. "Scarlett, yeah, you guys busy with anything lately?" Don't ask me how I got Scarlett's WhatsApp. A smart pursuer knows how to infiltrate the inner circle. Scarlett replied almost instantly. "Why, Vivian? Miss our boss already?" I smiled shyly at my screen. "Nothing major, just that the firm's promotional brochures need updating. We're hiring too." My brain kicked into overdrive. Oh, what kind of work is involved? Mostly design, layout, and writing the content. I slapped my thigh. Perfect. That's literally my major. Think I'd be a good fit? And just like that, the next day I found myself at Ethan's law firm. I came fully prepared, even bringing a resume. Ethan read through it carefully, his expression tinged with surprise. Impressive work experience. I lifted my chin proudly. Of course. I majored in advertising and design, and I've taken on tons of freelance projects to practice my skills. Over the past 3 years, I've built up quite a bit of experience. Heck, even our student council's promotional materials were all designed by me back in school. I cleared my throat and struck a serious pose. I promise to follow orders, obey commands, and do my absolute best to meet all your requirements. And most importantly, I don't need to get paid. Ethan chuckled at my exaggerated stance. He adjusted his posture and said, "There's no such thing as a free lunch. What do you want in return?" I grinned. "When I'm done, I want Attorney Stone to take me out for dinner." Just as expected, Ethan agreed. Scarlett poked my forehead and teased, "Why do I feel like your brain suddenly stopped working?" You're really gonna work your ass off just for one meal? I shrugged with a helpless smile. Can't help it, your boss is just that charming. As we chatted, I glanced around. Something felt off. I frowned. Hey, where's Blaze? He's not around. The moment I said that, a low voice suddenly sounded behind me. Different from Ethan's usual calm and indifferent tone, this time I could actually hear a hint of irritation. You looking for Blaze? My shoulders tensed. I quickly shook my head. Ethan gave me a long look. Then he simply said, let's go. I'll take you home. The whole way back Ethan's mood was not great. That night I texted Scarlett to chat. Was Blaze fired? Or did he have a falling out with your boss? Why did Mr. Stone get so mad the moment I mentioned his name? Scarlett took a while to reply. Blaze isn't part of our firm. He's actually our boss's close friend, he owns a bar. That's why you didn't see him at the firm. That makes sense. I always thought it was weird for a lawyer to have bright red hair. No wonder. Just as I was digesting this information, Scarlett sent another voice message. I tapped to play it. And no, they didn't have a fight. As for why the boss was mad, ever considered that maybe you were calling Blaze the wrong thing? Another voice message came in. I played it. Scarlett's voice was dripping with amusement. Next time don't call him bro. Just call him by his name. The moment it clicked, I flopped onto my bed and rolled around laughing into my pillow. Wait, hold up. Attorney Stone, was he jealous? The law firm's brochure was finally done. It took half a month to complete, but seeing Ethan's satisfied expression as he flipped through the printed copies made me breathe a sigh of relief. At least all my hard work paid off. Just as I was mentally celebrating, waiting for Ethan to invite me out for that well-earned dinner, a stunning long-haired woman suddenly burst into the office. Attorney Stone, why haven't you replied to my messages? Are you free tonight? Let's have dinner together. I was stunned on the spot. I quickly squeezed over to Scarlett and whispered, what's going on? Scarlett lowered her voice. Previous client. Ever since the boss won her case, she's been all over him. Hearing that, I let out a breath of relief. As long as she's not his girlfriend, it's fine. Meanwhile, Ethan rubbed his temples and said in a low, firm voice, Miss Sterling, I've told you many times, I do not accept any invitations outside of work. The woman pouted, still unwilling to give up. Attorney Stone, why are you so heartless? I came all the way here, can't you say yes just once? Her sickly sweet voice sent a full-body shiver down my spine. Scarlett, seeing me still passively enjoying the drama, elbowed me hard and whispered, what are you waiting for? This is your moment, go save your man. Before I could react, she shoved me forward. Quickly straightening my clothes, I cleared my throat twice and stepped in front of Ethan. Miss Sterling, right? Sorry, but Attorney Stone is already booked for tonight. Sterling's eyes narrowed as she scanned me from head to toe, clearly unconvinced. I pointed to myself. Sterling laughed, her expression practically screaming, and who do you think you are, little girl? After a long pause, she finally snorted, and what exactly is your relationship with Attorney Stone? There it is. I had been waiting for this question. I glanced at her, then shifted my gaze to Ethan. He too seemed to be waiting for my answer. Slowly, deliberately I said, me, Attorney Stone and I, well, we've kissed. Twice. So, you tell me, what do you think our relationship is? I countered, raising an eyebrow. Sterling's perfectly arched brows immediately scrunched into a frown. Her eyes darted to Ethan, obviously hoping he'd deny it. But Ethan didn't say a word. Sterling's face turned an interesting shade of green and white as she desperately clung to her last shred of hope. When did you two get together? Attorney Stone is supposed to be single. I shrugged, not answering directly, and instead said, so, Miss Sterling, would you mind not harassing my Attorney Stone anymore? The message was loud and clear. Even an idiot would be able to tell that Ethan and I weren't just ordinary friends. Sterling glared daggers at me, her expression practically murderous. After an awkwardly long silence, she finally huffed, what a waste of my time. I'm never coming back to this awful place again. With that, she stomped away in her high heels. I exchanged looks with Scarlett, and then we both burst into laughter. On the way to dinner, I kept catching Ethan's sneaking glances at me. Finally, at a red light, I leaned in closer and asked, you keep looking at me, just say what's on your mind. I promised to answer honestly. Ethan turned his head and our eyes met. After a brief pause, he asked, where did the second time come from? I immediately understood what he meant. But the way he asked, so seriously yet adorably, made my mischievous side act up again. I grinned and blinked playfully. Come closer. Ethan tilted his head down slightly, leaning in. I didn't hesitate for even a second, I kissed him right then and there. When I finally pulled away, I licked my lips, savoring the moment, then smiled and said, there. Now it's two. Ethan froze for a long time. The light turned green, but he just stared ahead blankly, as if his brain had momentarily short-circuited. Only the deep red spreading across his ears betrayed his attempt to maintain composure. I was curious to see how long he could hold out. Soon we arrived at our destination. This time it wasn't some fancy, overpriced restaurant. Instead, Ethan had brought me to a small street-side eatery near campus. With his perfectly tailored suit, he looked completely out of place in the tiny, casual shop. I laughed, resting my chin on my palm. Why here? Ethan, ever the professional, replied seriously. Last time, I noticed you didn't have much of an appetite. So I asked Scarlett about your food preferences. She said you'd probably like this place better. Hearing that, I blinked in surprise. Could it be that I lost my appetite last time because I was too busy panicking about washing dishes to afford the bill? Well, either way, he wasn't wrong. Compared to those so-called fine dining restaurants, a casual street stall was much more my style. I tilted my head slightly, a mischievous glint flashing in my eyes. Ethan, but why would you ask Scarlett about what I like to eat? For the first time, his composure cracked, his expression faltered just for a second. But I wasn't about to let him off the hook so easily. I pressed further, leaning in slightly. Ethan, do you like me? Ethan let out a low sigh, murmuring my name in a warning tone. But I continued, my voice firm. You let me kiss you. You went out of your way to learn what I like. You got jealous when I called another guy bro. So, Ethan, doesn't that mean you like me? In the end, we never ate that meal. Instead, Ethan dragged me back to his car. Before I even had the chance to settle into my seat, he leaned over, pressing me against the seat. His breath ghosted against my lips as he whispered, Vivian, you brought this on yourself. His tone was low and icy, but his heavy breathing betrayed his restraint. For once, he was completely different from his usual calm, controlled self. I barely had time to process what was happening before he closed the distance, his lips capturing mine. For a long time, he didn't let go. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a light thought floated in. Did I just successfully push Ethan past his limit? And the thing was, I liked it. I might be a little twisted. When Ethan finally let go, I slumped back against the seat, gasping for air. He closed his eyes, exhaling deeply as if regretting something. When he opened them again, his expression was unreadable. Gently, he brushed a stray strand of hair from my forehead, his fingertips lingering for a moment. Then with a soft sigh, he murmured, I'm sorry. A vein twitched at my temple. Sorry, after a kiss? Was this his way of kissing and then pretending nothing happened? I felt a surge of panic, my voice blurting out his name in urgency. Ethan, this time you kissed me first. Don't tell me you still don't dare to admit you like me? Desperately, I searched his gaze, trying to find a trace of affection, some proof that he felt the same. But his eyes were clouded, unreadable, like a mist blocking me from seeing through him. My head spun, the uncertainty making my mind go blank. And then, the next second, I was pulled into his arms. His breath was warm against my ear as he spoke, his voice low and magnetic. When I said sorry, I didn't mean it the way you think. I froze. His lips brushed against my ear, his voice dipping even lower. Vivian, you made the first move. So if you like me, you're not allowed to like anyone else. My breath hitched. Even if your feelings for me were just a passing impulse. It's too late. Because the moment you decided to mess with me, I decided that I'll never let you go. Not in this lifetime. His arms tightened around me, his possessiveness almost suffocating. That, he murmured, is why I apologized. Ethan, do you even know how to confess properly? You almost had me thinking I was getting played. On the way back, every time we stopped at a red light, I reached over and grabbed Ethan's hand, just to make sure that this was real, that we were really together. When we arrived, I clung to his arm, leaning in close to whisper in his ear. Maybe, liking you really was just an impulse at first. But Ethan, what do I do? Because every time I see you, I end up liking you even more. So don't worry, 100% guaranteed I'm never leaving you. Ethan ruffled my hair, his usual warmth melting into something even softer. We lingered for a moment before I suddenly pulled back. All right, I'm heading up. Then, grinning mischievously, I tilted my head and added, but before I go, Ethan, how about a goodbye kiss? Ethan let out a low chuckle, his arms sliding around me as he leaned in, granting my wish. Satisfied, I hopped out of the car, my heart still racing. But I'd barely taken 2 steps when I realized Ethan was following me. I turned around, suddenly nervous. Ethan, are you following me home? Wait, wasn't this a little fast? I wasn't ready. No, my parents weren't ready. Ethan glanced at me, an amused smirk tugging at his lips. Vivian, did you ever wonder why I happened to be on the rooftop that night? I blinked. Wait, I actually hadn't thought about that before. Ethan casually tilted his head, looking up at the building. I live here. Oh, and just so you know, the top 3 floors? All mine. So anytime, Vivian, you're welcome to come over. After graduating, I finally told my parents about my relationship with Ethan. Both of them stared at me, faces completely deadpan. So you're telling us? My mom began, squinting. That you got yourself a lawyer boyfriend? Super handsome, filthy rich. I grinned smugly and nodded. My dad reached out and pressed a hand against my forehead, then turned to my mom. She doesn't have a fever, so why is she talking nonsense? My mom sighed and shook her head. I'm not buying it. You. My dad also shook his head. Nope. Not unless you bring the guy home. I stood there, speechless. Excuse me? You two are my biological parents, what happened to trust? The next day I dragged Ethan home. The moment my mom laid eyes on him, her eyes practically sparkled. Right, forgot to mention my obsession with good looks. Totally inherited from my mom. Rumor has it that if my dad wasn't at least somewhat handsome in his youth, he might not have even won her over. I had to hold her back before she embarrassed herself. Mom, please get a grip. Meanwhile, my dad coughed twice, stepping in front of her like a bodyguard before ushering Ethan over to the couch. Luckily, Ethan was cool as ever. The whole situation didn't rattle him one bit. After a round of basic introductions, my dad launched into full interrogation mode. From how we got together to Ethan's family background to his future plans, he grilled him on everything. As for the outcome, judging by the huge, satisfied grin on my dad's face, Ethan had definitely passed with flying colors. That night, Ethan stayed for dinner and drank quite a bit with my dad. By the time he was leaving, his face was slightly flushed. I was about to walk him out when he grabbed my hand and shook his head. No need. Stay inside and help your mom take care of your dad. After he left, my mom sighed dreamily. Tao, that's a great guy. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I was worried about Ethan, so I got up to get some water. That's when I accidentally overheard my parents talking. This boy seems really nice. Our daughter should be in good hands with him. I know, but I can't help worrying. He's just too outstanding. What if one day? Nonsense. My mom cut him off. Our daughter is amazing too. Whatever happens, it's their lives. Let them figure it out. Yeah, you're right. I quietly tiptoed back to my room, lost in thought. Because truthfully, I'd had the same worries too. Ethan was undeniably exceptional in every way. Meanwhile, I was 7 years younger than him, a college graduate who still had a lot of catching up to do. I sighed, placing my water down. Right then, my phone screen lit up. A message from Ethan. Wanna come to the rooftop? So he wasn't asleep either. I didn't even reply. Just grabbed a jacket and snuck out just like the first time. Under the dim rooftop lights, Ethan stood there, bathed in a soft glow, looking almost otherworldly. Without hesitation, I ran into his arms, hugging him tight. Ethan. What if one day I can't keep up with you anymore? Ethan tightened his hold around me. His voice, low and warm, whispered against my ear. Then I'll carry you. I won't let you fall behind.